So welcome to the franchise. Is it right for you, class, under Launch Lenaway? And I would like to introduce our panel of presenters today. We've got Mary Murray, who has experience, all three of these presenters have experience with owning a franchise and running a franchise. Laura Gippert and Mark Murray. And they're going to be presenting their individual experiences and lessons learned and helping us who may be considering operating a franchise in a certain direction, what not to do, what to avoid, questions that you need to ask. So I will turn it over to Mary.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. And good evening, everyone. Really excited to have Laura Gippert up on screen, coming in from Denver, Fort Collins, I think. I'm not sure because she's kind of straddling those two cities and doing lots of work in both areas, but it's a pleasure to have Laura with us. Laura is a very special person to us. She is Mark's stepdaughter. And so we have known her for a long time and watched her grow in so many different ways. And her most recent business venture that she will be speaking about this evening is pretty exciting. And she's got some interesting things to share. So really, thank you, Laura, for joining in. And I do want to just take a brief minute. I see a couple people on this in the class that I want to give a special shout out to who were so helpful in our recent Taste of Lenaway on September 19th. I think I saw Heidi sitting there and Leslie and Will and Luke jumped in and volunteered that evening and were just incredible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I need to be more formal with that, and I will, but I wanted to do a little shout out. And also a couple of makers in there. I'm looking at Courtney, and I don't know if Kim's there, but just amazing work that you presented in your food items that were loved by all and just so wonderfully presented, and your verbal, presentation of your items was equally as incredible. So congratulations on that, you two. So anyway, got that passed. And again, thanks to all who helped with that. Tonight, we're going to do something, kind of hopefully answer the question, at least a little bit, if you will. Franchising, is it right for you? This is really going to be a casual discussion, conversation. We invite your comments and questions of each person who, myself, Mark, and Laura, as they talk about their experience with a franchise. I know that Sheila has made copies of some of the information that I'm going to be following and elaborating on. And I'm starting this evening, and then we're going to hear from Laura and then from Mark. And then, as I said, we will also entertain questions. But I'm going to start with just, kind of reviewing a little bit of information that I'm certainly not going to read all this, but just understanding as we begin that there, are three major types, and there's all kinds of subgroups under these categories as well. But the business format franchise, which is what I am most familiar with and will be speaking on, as I started with it was Beaner's Coffee when I started. And then during my time with them, Mark was involved as well. The 8 years that we were in that franchise working with those folks, they had a name change, and you'll know them as Bigby Coffee now. And then product franchises or single operator franchises. I think Laura's, she'll explain it, but she sort of has her fingers, I think, kind of in, I'm not exactly sure, in both the manufacturing type of franchise and the product franchises, and she will elaborate on that as well. But those are the three categories that we're going to be speaking this evening regarding, and I think anyone who has even considered, franchises, because we see them all around, they're everywhere, right? Starbucks, Big B, Ford Motor, lots of food franchises out there. So we have, I'm sure everyone in the room has had many experiences with various types of franchises. So probably as you're those in in the LEAP class, excuse me, right now, as you're developing that business idea, you've probably thought, should I be maybe thinking about a franchise, possibly in the early stages as you are now, or thinking maybe as I develop and expand my idea and my actual operation, perhaps it's something that you're thinking about later on. Those are all really good questions as you start any kind of a business. But I think there are really some basic categories that if you are thinking at any level about a franchise that you need to consider. And I've listed one as your investment, because with all franchises, first and foremost, there will be an investment. There will be money involved, and it doesn't begin unless that investment is made by you, the franchisee. And then the question is, if you say, yes, I have this money that I can invest, well, how much of that money are you willing to lose? Because again, when you go into a franchise and sometimes it goes exactly the way you think it is, with minor bumps, if you will, or sometimes it doesn't. And so I think the risk involved is always as you're starting any new business, it's really a critical component that you need to really work through in your head. Is this, how much am I really willing to lose and not have it destroy my life and my family, etc. So those are really important questions that you need to start with. And then how are you thinking about the franchise? Are you going to do it solo? Do you have a partner? Um, you know, which is going to be best for you, because certainly franchises offer that option. Mark and I went into Big B Coffee together. So I was working with a partner right from the get-go, right in the beginning, and the franchise or knew that. And so that's how we move forward. Laura has a partner and they're in it together, but sometimes you go into it by yourself. So those are questions you need to go through and make sure you're comfortable with. And then, of course, I know in the LEAP class right now, you're really, working on finances and in all those, in budgets, and where do you get financing, and those are all questions that you need to go through and really work through very clearly in your head and have it defined, and for you to understand what your financing you might need, and what kind of steps you need to go through to actually obtain the financing that is needed to start the franchise. And then, of course, again, this is going into a franchise is so close to what you have been doing as you're developing your business idea and your business plan in the LEAP program. The idea of, do I have, when I get involved with the franchisee, number one, money is going to go out, because that's just a given. But then, how are your finances in terms of living, your living expenses, are they covered as you work through the whatever business you're doing with whatever franchise or you're working with? Can you handle those things together? Do you have the income to support you while you're learning? Because getting in a franchise isn't just, okay, here you go, now you've got a Big B coffee shop, you're done. Not at all. Just, I started from scratch. I ended a 30-year career that was entirely different from running a Big B coffee shop. And so I needed to make sure that I needed to know what I was doing and work in terms of being successful. So in knowing that that's a learning curve and it was going to be steep for me. But it took me over a year to get there. I should say, and that's part of my story. And again, you all have started with a business idea, and for this summer, you've been developing it. When I started, along with Mark, with the idea of, you know what, we're not really satisfied with the level of product we can get in terms of coffee in our community. So, what if we started a coffee shop? And so there is my journey. That's how it started. And what, the next category is looking at your abilities as you go into a franchise. There's just an incredible amount of due diligence that you need to do, as in any business idea development. And this was far from what I had been doing for the previous 30 years. So I needed to really take my time. I think it took us well over a year of, oh boy, looking at what do you need to know? I was working with Mark. He had very exquisite business acumen that he continues to this day to have. So I was very fortunate to have my partner was very, very good at the business aspect, but neither one of us knew much about truly the world of coffee. We knew we liked good coffee and we knew what we liked in good coffee, but the process started with all kinds of visits to coffee shops all over, wherever we went. It was always a visit to a coffee shop, and not just to sit back and enjoy the atmosphere. That was certainly important, but to study. We looked at each coffee shop as a laboratory, and we went in there and studied. How was the service? How was the product? How was it packaged? What was the crowd like? What was the cleanliness? I mean, you could probably make a list of 50, 60 different things that we looked at very carefully over and over again. And we went into this with the idea of, we had a small business and we were going to reconfigure an area and put a coffee kiosk, if you will, in a little coffee shop. And we thought, oh, we're going to be that's called an independent. Well, through our, exploration of this whole process, we quickly found out that, there's a whole lot involved in this that we had no idea. And we started to think, do we really want to do this as an independent? Because again, what special skills can I bring to coffee? Well, not too many. So then our next step was, okay, maybe we need to look at some professional journals and some organizations, which again, all these steps, I would say to anyone starting any business, as you all are applicable as you go through your process. You may never have thought of franchise, and you maybe never will, and that's okay. But I think the steps that exploration to decide, do you want to do a franchise or not, are just so valuable in any business development. And so we spent probably 9-10 months. And then one of the big things that we did is we went to Seattle to what's called Coffee Fest, which is it's a convention, if you will, a huge conference with education components and all kinds of distributors and everything you can imagine about coffee that takes place. This year was the year that we attended, was in, as I mentioned, in Seattle. And that was, 5 days of walking the floor, talking to all of the vendors who were there, the packers, the bean producers, and then we did additional coursework on how to cup coffee, which is a whole different process, and learned about everything you ever wanted to know. Truly, it was like think of what you're doing this summer. We did it in about 5 days. So it was 8 hours a day of just like drilling down on everything about coffee, but it was an incredible experience. We came out of there thinking, well, maybe we can do this with an independent. We found a supplier, but you know what? The supplier was over on the West Coast and we were living in Adrian on the East Coast. So, as we thought we were going to go in a certain direction, we got back to Adrian and said, I don't know. And of course, at that point, what are the goals? And again, you need to have your goals. You need to know what direction you're thinking you want to head into. Otherwise, you can get all over. So again, we went back to, we want to be we want to have a good product. We want to provide good customer service. And then we started to think, but wow, we looked at all these independents who were just struggling as you talk to the owners, and it's, everything is on their backs, their product selection, everything to do with the business, as well as all the marketing, everything that has to go through them. So that's when we started to look at, well, of course, by then, everyone was starting to really get into coffee. This was quite a few years ago, by the way. And we thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to be a Starbucks franchise? But we knew at that point the market in Adrian was very small, and Starbucks were only in larger cities. So we knew that wasn't a possibility. And I hate to say this, Laura, don't be mad at me, but I'm an MSU grad. And I did not, I'm so old that when I was at Michigan State, Beaners wasn't there yet. And Laura's an MSU grad, and she remembers, because Beaners was born and raised in East Lansing, Michigan. And any of you who know the campus on Michigan Avenue, there's an old Arby's, an Arby's franchise that went down many, 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 many years ago. And that was one of the first Beaners. They were then Beaners, the first or second.
2 minutes.
Anyway, Mark's saying I have 2 minutes. I thought that was the second Beaner store. I think it was the first one. But anyway, so at that point, we started to say, maybe we should look at this Michigan franchise, Big Coffee, and we did. And I just have to say that, interviewing them, we went in and they interviewed us as well. We wanted to have some things because we had been studying this whole thing and knew our community, knew what they wanted. And we said, we have to have a drive-through, we want a semi-automatic. They weren't doing those things then. And they started, and right away we could tell that was a franchisor that we could really work with. Bob,
Bitch.
no, Bob, I can't.
Fish.
Fish. Yes. I thought you said Fitch, and I said, no, it's Fish. Bob Fish and Mary Roselle, the founders of Beaner's Coffee. And right away, there was a click. There was something that we said, I think we can really work with these people. And after that, you have, several more meetings with them. You work out royalties. You work out what they will be expecting of us. And, it was a very positive thing for us because, the support that we received, the education that we received, that our baristas received, that was required, but we expected that. And the whole process of jumping into that franchise for us really worked. And I think it was starting out with it. We developed a relationship with them very early on. There weren't that many franchises then, I will say maybe 12 total. And we were able to really connect with other franchisees as well as the owners who provided really good support and really good communication in terms of the whole process. Because once you are in a franchise, like a business franchise, like we were, now you're in lockstep with them. So you don't go off and do your independent thing. You follow the line. And we were able to have really good agreement with them throughout the whole process. And I'm going to stop now because Mark's saying I need to. He's the timekeeper tonight on our end. I'll jump in perhaps a little bit later, but that's the story that we did. Much of what you're doing in your business development right now is exactly what you would do as you look for a franchise. And that was the story that from our end of developing the Big B franchise in Adrian. And I'm going to stop with that at this point, and we'll take some questions later if you do have them. And I'm going to turn it over to Laura, and she has a totally different business that she has franchised. So
Yes,
Laura Gippert, take it away.
you're sweet. Yes, our experience has been very different on this front, but let me just tell you a little bit about the business we're in. It's a home-based services business combined with storage. So I'm not sure what sorts of franchises that the room of folks are looking at potentially getting into, but it's a big conglomerate called 5-Star Franchising, and we purchased a pack-out company called 1-800-PACK-OUTS. And what that is essentially we take care of people's personal belongings during a flood or fire, and we pack it out, we inventory, pack out, store. Sometimes we clean the contents. We're talking furniture, decor, artwork, books, anything that might have suffered from the damages, or that just needs to be moved out so that reconstruction can happen. We store it in our warehouse, we clean the items, and then we bring it back once the restoration is complete. That's the nature of the business. The franchise itself, we explored for about 9 months before we signed on the dotted line. And we started in March of 2023. And my partner had been laid off. Kevin had been laid off from the beer industry after post-COVID shakeout. And he had owned a franchise in his early 20s, a small window repair. Navis was the name of that franchise. So he had been down the franchise road before. I had not. I had been a realtor and still am a realtor in Northern Colorado for about 25 years. And so kind of combining our forces, we thought this is a good match for us. It gets us, we're still getting in people's homes. So that's a good match. Kevin's a logistical navigation guy. He was a merchant marine. So he's got this sort of how do you box it and get it all in tight spaces kind of fascination anyway. And also he's a collector. So he really enjoys getting to people's homes and seeing what they own. And he's fascinated by all that. So that's how we ended up purchasing and deciding that this type of business would be good for us. There were only a few franchises in the nation, and we knew we wanted a franchise because we needed quick startup. We didn't want to go through the headache of building the IP, the marketing, the materials, the logos, and all of that. And so this franchise happened to have a fairly low initial investment in terms of franchises. It was $60,000, which it's a lot of money, but compared to some of these that even Mary mentioned, it's on the lower end. But with royalties that you have to pay for the next 10 years of your relationship with them of 10% of your top line revenue a month, that means that the monies that you have to pay before you pay any of your other expenses, any money you bring in, you have to pay 10%. So we got into it because we needed the quick startup. We didn't want to be building our business from the ground up. We were promised a lot of training and support, and that we didn't need to have a background in restoration because we were smart and we were well connected. And so you'll do great. You'll just, you'll knock them over with your personality and good looks is pretty much what the salesperson told us. So we naively believed him. And we ended up in the franchise, and I would say within 2 to 3 months, we were already starting to feel some pains of being involved with this franchise. And we'll get there in a minute. We now, fast forward a year and a half, have legally separated from this franchise. And so we have relaunched a completely new brand, which means eventually we did have to go through the headache and expense of rebranding. We're now called Aloha Contents, which is a much more value-based brand than 1-800 was. And instead of just sort of telling you my entire experience and how they were just awful, because in our mind they were, I wanted to maybe just pose a few questions that I wish I would have asked myself or someone would have asked me when considering the franchise. So in the room right now, as I can kind of see who's in there, but everyone here is already going through the business classes that Launch Lenawee is offering, right? So you're getting that sort of foundational entrepreneurship, mentorship. That was critical to us still being alive. And by the way, we are doing very, very well, despite the franchise's non-help. But it was because I basically dove in and did what you all are doing in terms of getting a sort of an MBA of sorts in this in entrepreneurship, because the franchise is definitely not going to do that for you. Okay, that has been made painfully clear through this business. So if it's okay with the room, and I will forward these to Sheila to pass on to you in the future, but here are the questions, 5 questions that I wished someone had really asked me to focus on and think about before we purchase the franchise. Okay, so number 1, and again, we'll send them, but do I want to build within someone else's system, or do I want the freedom to build my own? Well, it turns out I am not very good at taking orders from people when I don't respect them. And this franchise leadership just really wasn't very good. And it was very hard to trust that they knew what they were doing with the company once we had a few interactions with them. And so it was the systems that they proposed and forced us to use were clunky, outdated, and super limiting. Like technology they made us spend money on that really wasn't helpful and ended up really hurting our bottom line. So I guess I would just ask yourself, like, how well do you do with someone else setting your rules? Because apparently I don't do very well with that. Neither does Kevin. Okay, number 2, am I prepared for the reality that the support I'm promised may not actually materialize? This is a big one for us. We had 0 experience in the restoration and insurance claim world. And that has set us back probably a year in our launch, because we were under the impression that the franchisor was going to train us and support us and coach us on the aspects of, much like coffee world, right? On the restoration world. And they really didn't have the talent or the support to be able to do that for us. So in the end, we spent a lot of time and money doing our own research in the industry. You know, there might be simpler industries out there to learn quicker. I can tell you, trying to navigate insurance claims and adjusters and get paid by big insurance companies is not one that you can learn overnight. So if I were starting all over, I probably would have advised myself and or my partner to go and work for a restoration company for 6 months, work in their any department, doesn't matter which one, get a sense of how this stuff goes down. So that would be my advice in that section. Am I prepared for the reality that the support I promised may not materialize? Any questions right there? Are you good?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just to repeat that second question.
Well, the number 2 question was, am I prepared for the reality that the support I'm promised may not actually materialize? Because you sign this agreement, this franchise agreement with them. And I can promise you, any franchise agreement you sign is completely slanted to help support and defend the franchisor. So it will say things like up to 4 days of training, and then you get half a day and you've got no case to fight them on. So just, you may have to go out and get your own training on the industry. They trained us a bit on their system. That was fine. But to have an understanding of the industry, I think is really important. Okay, number 3. Can I tolerate financial surprises? And what happens if the numbers don't add up? So one thing that happened with us that I don't know how we could have anticipated it. And so I'm not sure how to advise someone in the future anticipate it. But what we did discover that the actual startup and operating costs were about $75,000 more than the franchise had told us it would be. And so a year later, we have spent $75,000 more than they told us we would need to invest in our first year. within a month of us signing our franchise agreement, they reissued their new franchise disclosure statement, which said that the investment was going to be higher. So I guess we could have asked maybe if there was a new financial statement or franchise disclosure coming out soon, because we literally signed our agreement in March, and in April of 2024, they came out with a new thought on how much money it was going to cost to start the operation. So maybe just ask, if you're getting close to signing on the dotted line, what does the new disclosure say about the expenses involved? Okay, number 4. Am I comfortable with restrictions like non-competes, even if the business doesn't work out? So if you have a business concept already in your mind and you're looking at a franchise to be a part of, if it doesn't work out with the franchise, most franchise agreements say that you cannot then go and operate that same type of business in that area within a certain period of time. And mine had a 2-year, 50-mile non-compete. So right now we're operating a new business and we are at risk of them suing us for this non-compete. So just comfortable with any restrictions if the business doesn't work out. So the bottom line, I think, of a few of these is consult an attorney, have them look at the franchise agreement with you, have them point out all the areas that could become a problem even should the business fail. I mean, even if our business failed and we shut our doors, we couldn't reopen another business within 2 years that's competing. So just know all the nuances if it doesn't work out. And the 5th question was, do I trust the franchisor's leadership, value, and vision enough to tie my reputation to theirs? Mary and Mark both commented on how they had a great feeling about the leadership at the coffee company. And so they were comfortable getting in bed with them. I mean, that's what you're doing, is you're getting in bed with the franchisor, right? And they're not short agreements. I don't know what Big B was, but 10 years is a long time. I mean, that's longer than a lot of people's marriages. So you have to really trust that, you got to have that good feeling going into it. And at some level, kind of trust your gut about that. I would say that for me, that 10-year commitment scared me before I ever signed on the dotted line. And it was a big and difficult decision to finally do it, because I didn't have a great feeling about the brand. And I do regret not sort of listening to that gut instinct that, gosh, these guys something doesn't feel right. So I guess on that one, I'm just saying, kind of tap into your gut on it too. After all the numbers are studied and you've consulted your attorney and your launch Lenaway mentors or what they're called there. And that is very important to have them look at the numbers too. And then really just, is this something that I can live with for do I want to be in bed with these people for the next 10 years?
Yep.
So those are they go kind of beyond the glossy franchise brochures. I don't know if that would be helpful to have those in front of you, but those are the things I wish I would have honed in on before we got involved. The good news is we're free from them-ish. I mean, they could still come back and chase us for a non-compete. We're doubtful that they will do that, but the business concept was a really good one. The year-long endeavor with them was a worthwhile endeavor, because I now know how to run a restaurant. I'm not doing that ever. Just for the record, I'm not doing. No offense to anybody in the room that wants to run a restaurant. I've done that. I did that with Mark. It wasn't that much fun. But the restoration contents business, now I can go a year later, I can go toe to toe with anyone in the industry in Northern Colorado. And that was because I I had to learn it on my own. So
Mhm.
anyway, there you have it. Any questions for me?
Well, Laura, I will just step in to say how proud I am of both you and Mary. And, the quality of the inputs will have a lot to do with the outputs. And so if you're willing to be really smart and work really hard and learn everything about it, you're going to be successful as Laura and Mary have been. And so I just really want to, you've been through hell and back on that, and both of you have worked really hard to build a brand that you can be proud of. And so just know that there's a lot of work involved, and you need to be smart, sharp, work really hard, be tenacious, and if you do that, you may make it. So I'm going to talk a little bit in general first, and then I'll talk about my experience with Little Caesars Pizza. In general, so we're doing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mary had the good, Laura the bad, and I have the ugly. But as Laura said, at no point do I regret any of it. It's been a learning experience all the way. We were able to financially do well on all of the endeavors that we had. So I'm going to give you some goods, bads, and uglies, and you should take a good shot at paying attention because they're all very important. On the good side, the recipes, if you're in a food business or other businesses, having a relationship where they know how to make the product and make it consistently good, not just delivering the product across the counter, but the whole supply chain issue is really, really important. Where are you getting quality supplies from all the way along? And what kind of a price are you going to pay all the way along? Will they help you estimate the utilization for your products? Will they help you food cost those products? Will they give you a range of metrics that you need to know in order to know if you're in line in order to make a profit? So that all has to do with, your numbers. And we've talked about numbers before, and we will be talking about them again. But just really paying attention to the fact that a good franchise has good systems that get satisfied customers across the counter. And again, the metrics that they give you, they'll tell you if you're half a point or a point too high on your costs or what have you, if they're good. Another asset is marketing. The branding and marketing that they can produce generally can be better than what you could produce as an independent. And the way that they know how to get that out there frequently is more advanced than what I would have the ability to understand by going to a local chamber meeting. Others, they should have and do have sharp people in the area. The other area they can be helpful if it's a business that requires location sensitive decision making, then they can help you with that. They know how to locate a good site. I have some bads on that too. The sales department of any franchise is very interested in you opening a store as soon as possible. They're under a lot of pressure to open new stores. And so there may not be the right location at the right time. So you want to be a little bit careful that while they should have experts on their team to help you find a location, it may not always work out that way. And then lastly, on the good side, there are a community of operators with a large franchise who've been around for a long time. So even when we were Little Caesars franchisees, we really learned a lot more and got a lot more support from other franchisees, people in the business like us, than we got from the company that set us there. So, there are a lot of good reasons to want to be a part of a franchise. And now there are a lot of areas that you want to be aware of. I'm going to call them bad or maybe not. Laura's paying 10%. The rates is 5 to 10% franchise fee, and that's just out of the gate. So we all want to remember that a franchise is a business that came up with a great idea, and they found out it worked, and they maybe made a couple more of them. And so you have operators or owners who know how to do that thing, whether it's make pizzas or rent storage units or whatever it is. But what they want to do is scale that business up. And so now, instead of becoming a small business operator like us, they're trying to become a franchise operator. And that's a whole separate business than running the store. So on their side of it, the franchisor wants to have a lot of stores, wants to make money, wants you to be a part of their cash flow. What the franchisee wants is to be able to have a successful business and make a living and have a solid relationship with the franchisor. You have common interests, but I can assure you that they are most interested in their interests and want you to be successful. But if you're not, they're not going to lose any sleep. They're going to move on and open more stores and keep doing what they do. So you need to remember, whatever they're telling you from their interest and their perspective, trying to increase their business. And if you can help them do that, then you're in. And if it doesn't work that way, you're not a friend of theirs if you're not a lapdog. They want you to be a part of the team. And that means agreeing with what they tell you, whether you like it or not. You heard Laura say, pretty quickly on, she realized, smart as she is, that they were doing some things or saying some things that didn't make sense. And they do that. What else about the not so good? They can get short on cash. They will hire incompetent people in different positions in their company who don't know what they're doing. But when you are joining that franchise, you have no idea whether the person in the suit is educated, trained, professional. You have no idea. You're going to have to learn that. And sometimes you learn it the hard way, because there are many people in those organizations who are dishonest. They lack professionalism. Their primary interests are in their own job and not in you, but they're very good at persuading you that they're very experienced and know what they're doing. So you need to be very much aware when you're going in there. It may feel like you're really going to make a good choice, but you can't believe what you see. You have to do due diligence and be sure that that organization actually has the strength that they claim to have. Okay, moving on to ugly. Again, unethical, incompetent, unprofessional, poor management, lack of transparency. They get in financial trouble. They clearly fail to deliver on what they say. And when they're having trouble, they don't really care much about the franchisees, as far as I can tell. So do take the time to do your due diligence. A couple of experiences with Little Caesars. So, Little Caesars started in Detroit, Michigan, Domino's, and the rest of them. And so back in the 80s, we watched them grow from a local Michigan company to a regional company in the Midwest. And during that time, we signed on to be a franchise for Hawaii, the Big Island of Maui. Now, that was a big mistake. Should never have done it. And the mistake was that I wanted to live on the Big Island. And so when we talked to Little Caesars, their supply chain was for the Midwest and a little bit on the West Coast by that time. They had several stores in Hawaii, but they had no experience running stores in Hawaii. If you looked at McDonald's and Pizza Hut and the rest of the big chains, they really understood the market. Little Caesars knew nothing about the market and assumed that Hawaii was the 50th state, that it was just like every place else. And they said that over and over again. They didn't realize that Little Caesars in Hawaii's pricing had to be at least 30 to 50% higher than the mainland. And so when we opened the first store, we had a very successful business there. It was a high volume store. But in the first few months that we were open, we ended up finding out after about 100 days in that we lost about $35,000 or $40,000 running the busiest store in the Little Caesars system. We have a trophy from having the largest opening of any store worldwide that year. I think it was 90. And so you say, well, how could you possibly lose money when you had these big high sales? And they were lined up around the block, and Laura was working 50 hours a week making pizzas. She's laughing, What happened was it was chaos. The system, the delivery system was inoperative. They had no idea how much they were charging. So when we got our cheese and food bill every week, we paid the bill thinking that they knew what was going on. Just so you're aware, they have a distributorship on the West Coast in, I believe it was in Los Angeles, and then they had a sub-distributor in Honolulu. So they'd be shipping from the Midwest to the distributor on the West Coast, to the distributor in Honolulu, to the distributor, sub-distributor in Hilo and on Maui. So with this line of service, they really had no idea what was going on. And so 3 months in, they handed us a bill for $38,000 for cheese and other stuff that had been underbilled by the original. And when they fixed it, they passed it on to the sub, who passed it on to the sub, who passed it on to us. So, we were in there thinking we were doing okay and get a bill for $38,000. Now, remember, this is 30 some years ago. So, that would be 75, 80 grand today. You don't want that kind of a relationship out of the gate with your franchisor. The other thing, we ended up, we told them that we were going to have a very large opening, and we did. They didn't think we would. And feeding that system, we sucked all of the food product out of the system in Hawaii, and we ended up closing our store for a few days because we couldn't there was no food anywhere around. And then they started flying it in on an airplane. And when you start paying air freight on pepperoni and cheese, you're in trouble. And so we were eating a lot of issues like that. Eventually, they came up with another brand product they called the Pizza Station. In our Maui store, they put one in down the street from us, which did hurt our business. And they claimed it was a different product. It was a long battle. In the end of the day, with Little Caesars, when I left the business, there were 15 stores in the state of Hawaii. There were 5,500 stores in the system. 10 years later, there was no stores in Hawaii and 3,200 stores in the system, and a major national lawsuit that the franchisees won because Little Caesars mandated you buy everything from them, and then they raised the prices way over what the competitors were charging. Now, why would a franchise want to do something like that to make that much more money and put all their franchisees out of business? Why would they do that? Well, have you been to Detroit recently? They have a wonderful Caesars Arena, Tiger Stadium, and no, they've done very well as a franchise, but at the expense of them not understanding how to have a mutually satisfying agreement between the franchisor and the franchisee. So I think that, Laura, you probably could add something to that from your own experience of being the frontline person during that.
Pizza. It was a fun time, actually, but I was in high school. I had no idea what was going on in the financial department, the bookkeeping department. You and Mom are pulling your hair out.
Yeah, in the end of the day, I want to be clear. We made money. We were a profitable business, but it was a terrible experience for me personally, and for all the other franchisees who went through what we did. And so it was like going into it, we had a clear picture of what was happening and why to do it. It was a good choice to get in, but we should have been in Kokomo, Indiana, instead of Hilo and Hawaii and the Big Island and Maui, because they were completely unprepared to service those stores. And so it was a real struggle. But other than that, I think that's enough. I think I've talked too long, and we're willing to handle some questions at this time, I think. Are you guys ready?
Sure.
All right.
One thing I want to say is that we've got a couple people in class who stated that, if their business, launches and it's successful down the road, they would like to franchise it. So what you're telling us is, a lot of the things that they should, make sure that they're planning for in their franchising plans to make sure that they're supportive of their franchisees and so forth. But does anybody in the room have questions?
When was the last time Mark had Little Caesars?
When's the last, Mark,
Can you say that question again?
when is the last time you ate some Little Caesars?
Oh, a while back, it's,
I know class number 7. We used to get it almost every week. We've changed the format into when we flipped into Leap, but the launch Lenaway for 7 years, we always had a dinner, and it was quite frequently Little Caesars that that I would run out and get in the middle of class, and then we would enjoy it together.
Oh, come on. The crazy bread is undeniable. I don't care how many people I work with. The crazy bread is, I can sometimes not drive by a Little Caesars to this day. I'm like, and 12 sticks won't kill me.
Good stuff.
Any other questions?
Occasionally.
So get your numbers down, figure out what you want to do, be careful, buyer beware, work hard, study. And the way that Laura had worked it out, we eventually, when we sold our business, we ended up planning to exit from the Bigby franchise as well. We got out of that, and we had a good relationship with them. It was no problem leaving. So,
Well, I think. Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
Well, I was going to say, in thinking about if the room is interested in eventually franchising their businesses, I do think that a dose of healthy tension is okay between a franchise and a franchisor. I think it's okay to challenge each other to be better at the parts that you're supposed to be doing. I mean, human nature is we're all in it for ourselves, and you're right. So there's going to be that sort of tension. You want to have that. You're not going to go in and they're not going to be just throwing roses at your feet and and dollars in your bank account. I think it's but there's expectations, and I think the bottom line is to understand and have shared expectations of what it does entail to be in that relationship.
yes.
And, I would just also say that, I have talked to people who have said to me, yeah, I was always interested in running my own coffee shop, but I went and worked at Starbucks and realized, oh my goodness, that's a whole world that is really not for me. So the idea of, franchising your product or service is certainly, it's a noble one, but I think really being solid, like if you are involved in a franchise like I was in Bigby, what I learned, what they taught me was invaluable, basic good business in marketing, in human relations, in product, in product distribution, in becoming a barista, a skilled barista, and knowing about my product, which was coffee and coffee drinks and all that kind of stuff related that you see in coffee shops. If you can get with if you are thinking you may want to franchise your product, you really need to get extremely serious on all those areas: marketing, finance, human relations, because if you have a good, solid, proven package, you can sell it, you can franchise it. But people like Laura mentioned, she went into that first arrangement when she was talking to the first franchisor, and she knew something just wasn't right. You all are smart people. You have a lot of different experiences in the work world and with people, and you can sniff off. People can do this. They can sniff out when things just aren't right. So I would say, if you are thinking of franchising, really get solid in your business. Solid. in all areas of your business, because that's one of the jewels of going with a franchise, is that they provide you with a lot of support that you
Wow.
don't get when you go independent.
A lot of you right now are in the class are working on your financials. And just to follow up on Mary, financials are critical, and most small business people really don't understand them. And a franchise helps you nail that down pretty quickly. You're turning in numbers daily and weekly, and you're looking at every single thing on your system right away. So they really do help you. They should with knowing your numbers. Now you're working your numbers right now for those presentations. I wanted to just throw out to the group that Tuesday the 19th at 5 p.m. I'm going to be in the training room for anybody that wants a tune-up on basic financial numbers, how to keep your numbers, how to know what you're doing. We're going to do 1 hour jam session, and you'll leave there with a pretty good idea of what you need to have for that banker presentation you're going to do. But one way or the number, don't forget that numbers are critical for your success.
And on the numbers too, just real quick, I will say that I think buying a franchise, it was easier to get an SBA loan than if I was just starting out, fresh business concept that's kind of new industry stuff. So, but that is one of the positives of choosing a franchise. There's actually funding companies out there that only do SBA lending for franchises, and for franchises they trust. So anyway,
Good point.
I could go on and on. I could go on and on.
Laura, we're at 6 o'clock, I think, Michigan time. So I think we did it in 1 hour. You guys, congratulations. Woo!
I would be really curious to know what kinds of businesses are we thinking about in the room? Is that something you all share with each other? I mean, am I allowed to ask that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we all support each other, we've
Awesome.
got, if you guys want to go around the room and real
Yeah,
quick,
I'd love to hear.
go ahead. Let's start with you.
Where do I look? Here.
Yeah.
I'm looking to start a taco business, starting with the stand and hopefully working up to a truck. Not sure I want to get.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Do you have some family members that would be on that with you? That would be on that journey with you? Or anybody?
We got one included. Not in the room.
Okay. Yeah. But okay. I think that, taco truck is small space. Make sure you like who you're working with.
Good point.
My name's Luke, and this is my brother Will, and we're looking to get an auto shop. We both have a love for cars, and we're looking to get into that business world.
Amazing. I do have a close friend who owns a few Jiffy Lubes. Do they have Jiffy Lubes in Michigan?
Yes.
Yeah, Jiffy Lubes. And they're a really massive franchise, and the Jiffy Lube franchisees just sued the franchisor, by the way, over the similar concept to Little Caesars. It was a class action or whatever, they franchise wide, because Jiffy Lube was requiring, Shell Oil, the owner of Jiffy Lube, was requiring that the Jiffy Lube owners all use their oil, and it was not, in fact, the best for the customers. So they won that lawsuit.
Cool.
Kind of wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Leslie and want to open a year-round farmer's market where farmer produce is sold on a consignment basis. So the local farmer gets most of the income from the
Ooh,
sale.
I love that idea. So I love that. Like a food co-op kind of thing.
Yeah, they call it a farm stop in this area. So
Ooh.
it's growing, so.
Love it.
Crystal?
Hi, I'm Crystal Davis. This is my mom, Mary McKinney. We are opening a self-serve wine bar with a rotating menu in downtown Adrian.
Fun. That's awesome. Is that going to be open by the time I come visit Mark and Mary here?
It'll be early next year.
Okay, okay, awesome.
Courtney?
Hi, I'm Courtney. I'm opening up a play cafe here in Adrian. It's will be a indoor space for children to play, kind of like the McDonald's play park. There'll be climbing gym and imaginative houses for kids to play pretend. And then I'll also have my baked goods for sale along with several breakfast items.
Ooh, love that. We frequented a lot of those when my son was little. There were two in Fort Collins that were really great. One that called Fit for Fun. And then there was Foco Kids Cafe or something. It was great. Really fun idea.
Kim, you're gonna have to shout.
Okay, hi, I'm Kim. I do confections, like, chocolate treats, kind of personalized to, corporate world and also just events, so. Not sure
Yummy.
if we're more yet, but we're headed that way.
Amazing. Well, you're taking your love for the confectionism and building it into a business. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Much more fun than packing people's soggy boxes, I can guarantee that.
Where,
Is that the-
This is my son Tyler. I'm Rachel. We're looking to open up a game store.
I'm sorry, say that again?
A game store?
Ooh, like a gamer's game store.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're gonna
fun.
do like, and rent out inflatables, but also sell games and, have event nights and that sort of thing.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Recreation. That's what I got my degree in. Good. Well, it's fun to hear what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
I'm Heidi. My daughter and I work together to create herbal skincare products. And we've been selling at farmers markets and on the shelves at a couple local stores.
Amazing. Well, your products must be working. You're old enough to have a daughter that works with you, huh? How old is she? That's really fun stuff too. Again, turning a passion into a business. I love hearing when people do that, you know? I think it's a beautiful, beautiful part of being living in America is that we can do this and truly make it happen. When there's a will, there's a way.
And we have one more.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm going to be doing crochet and embroidery and pretty custom work. I have a bunch of other things that I can do as well.
So fabric arts, crochet, embroidery, things like that.
Love it. Custom fashion. That's my jam.
Yes, it is.
It is. I have a girlfriend that upcycles these little jumpsuits that they're from Target, but then she takes this old fabric and puts them on the pockets and stuff. And I'm a sucker for those. I think I own 3 or 4 because I just, fast fashion, it's not that much fun. I want something custom. Good. Thank you for letting me be a part of this today. I think you've got some really smart and ambitious people in the room, and I have no doubt you're going to do wonderful, great big things.
We appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
All right, you
All right,
guys.
thank
Thank you,
you.
Laura.
We'll-
Thank you all for putting
Yes.
up with us.
Right.
Bye.
Good
Except
night.
for Laura, we'll see you real soon.
All righty. Bye
Okay,
now.
sounds
Thanks,
good.
Laura.
Bye.
Bye-bye.